はい、皆さんこんにちは、ジョーです。今日はですね、なんとスペシャルゲストを、お招きしてですね、いつもの通り、この領域で、活躍をされている、方にですね、インタビューをさせていただきたいと思います。かなり久しぶりにまたお会いさせていただくんですけれども、メタプラネットのプレゼント、サイモンさんに来ていただきました。Thank you so much for your time. I know you're really busy schedule having here in Abu Dhabi now. I'm glad to, have this session again. And super excited to ask you many questions about what you guys have to know.
It's wonderful to be here, and it's great to have an opportunity to sit down together. It's been 18 months when we were on stage together back at WebEx, I believe it was. And so I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. So we are here at Bitcoin Mina. You're here last year, right? Well, what is the difference, compared to last year? Atmosphere, investors, approached you, and also the market sentiments, everything is different. How is it?
Well, a lot can happen in 12 months. I still remember when we were here last year, we had just begun our journey. Mm-hmm. And so very few people had heard the name Metaplanet. But now, 12 months later, there's a lot of interest in what we're doing, what we're building, particularly from the institutional investor world. And so after the conference, we'll be heading to Dubai, spending some more time in Abu Dhabi, speaking with institutional investors that really want to hear our story. In terms of the conference, this is just the first day, so I think we'll know how it turns out over the next few days. But in terms of attendees, I hear there are twice as many people here this year than last year, so I expect it to be a very exciting couple of days.
Obviously, yes, thank you. And I think a lot of Japanese investors, there are many of them retails. And then how is it like interest? How are the interest from institutional investors recently?
Yeah, institutional investors, I think, are very interested in the story. I think that a year or 2 years ago, there wasn't really a good way for institutional investors to get exposure to Bitcoin, particularly in the Asian market. And so that's something now that I think Metaplanet is able to do for them. Mm-hmm. Strategy was the first company in the world to offer Bitcoin equity to the world, and now Metaplanet is able to follow that, certainly in the Asian market. And so over the past, I'm going to say probably 3 or 4 months, we have spent substantial time on the road, meeting with institutional investors from all over the world. And I think what's interesting is that they all have a keen appreciation for Bitcoin now, and they're looking for ways to get exposure. And there's many more ways that they will be able to get exposure over time. And so now obviously there's Bitcoin equity. We're moving now into Bitcoin credit instruments. And there's a lot of innovation that's yet to come.
Right, thank you. And then the last time when I went to the conference, that was Token 2029. And then some of the institutional investors told me that the company like you are kind of, like next generation of just Bitcoin ETF, because you can do a lot of stuff with Bitcoin, or other companies have ETH and Solana and so on. What do you think about this take?
I think there's certainly room for public companies to own different types of digital assets, and we think it's really up to an investor to decide how they want to get their exposure. For us, we're a Bitcoin first, Bitcoin only company, so you'll never see us buy anything besides Bitcoin. But investors, they can choose, I think, where they would like to get their exposure. I think what's important is that a company is focused and disciplined on an asset they believe in deeply, and an asset that has long-term staying power. And I think there is nothing like Bitcoin in the world. And so it's interesting that there are different ways now in the capital markets for investors to play a certain view that they have. And digital asset treasury companies do solve a lot of problems. And so that is something which we're keeping a very close eye on and see how the industry shapes up.
Yeah, I think those investors are kind of talking about, you guys can issue different kinds of shares and raising money and buy Bitcoins at a different time. But I'll go deeper into that later. But then my next question is, recently, bunch of like DAT companies' token price has been kind of compressed or going down or softening. What are the primary driver for those token price declining, or macro environment, or what do you think?
So I think there's a lot of factors. Macro environment for sure. We're in an environment now certainly over the past few months with a higher yield environment. Typically that comes with risk off. And so I think there's been some profit taking, in Bitcoin treasury companies around the globe. Bitcoin price has been a bit soft, and that obviously can amplify on both the upside as well as the downside. But I truly believe that our companies are very much undervalued at this stage, and so our market capitalization now is around the value of our Bitcoin holdings, which we think is not the right valuation for a company like ours. I think there's some misunderstanding really about how Bitcoin treasury companies should be valued and the potential that they can offer to investors. And so our goal as Metaplanet is really to spend time now educating the public on what a Bitcoin treasury company is, how we're different to just buying Bitcoin, how we can outperform Bitcoin over time. But markets will do what they do. They can't be controlled. We can't control our stock price. We can't control Bitcoin price. What we can do is we can continue to build, continue to deliver on the promises that we've made to be the best Bitcoin proxy out there, best Bitcoin levered proxy out there. And that's what myself and the management team will continue to push on day in and day out.
Yeah, and then next question is kind of general question. Now, MNAV of a lot of Bitcoin treasury company or other DApp companies compress quite a lot. Some are like substantially lower than 1, or some are like around 1, like yours, and so on. Do you think the investors, they kind of misunderstood the valuation of those companies, or this correction is, you think it's healthy, or what's your take on this?
We have a lot to thank Strategy for inspiring a whole generation of Bitcoin treasury companies. I can say that we're very proud to be the first company in the world to follow in Michael Saylor's footsteps. But really, because of their success and our success in following them, it gave a lot of people, I guess, the confidence to do the same. And so throughout the summer, as recently as a few months ago, lots of new treasury companies were launched. And I'm not sure if there is a need for that many treasury companies. I think that we'll go through a period of consolidation. I think there won't be that many players at the end that will survive, because ultimately, investors anywhere in the world should be able to, if they try hard enough, access a Bitcoin treasury company listed anywhere. And so the question really is, do we need that many? Right. And so many of these companies now are trading a little bit like closed-ended funds, right? And if you're a closed-ended fund and there's no natural redemption process, then if there's lack of liquidity, then they will trade at a discount. I think we're seeing a bit of that now. And so the opportunity for us at Metaplanet is to show how we have a moat, how we are different to most other Bitcoin treasury companies out there. And for us, what we're really excited about now is our credit instruments, our Bitcoin-backed perpetual preferred equity that we're moving forward towards. You cannot issue perpetual preferreds unless you have a substantial balance sheet of Bitcoin. And we now have a substantial balance sheet of Bitcoin. So it's possible for us, and I think that's how we continue to add value. We can continue to increase Bitcoin per share, while many others won't have an easy way to raise capital and buy Bitcoin at this point onwards.
Yeah. You touched upon the preferred shares, but then before going to that route, have you changed the overall strategy because of the recent market sentiment shift or the price declining? I think your case is still above MNAV 1, but then it's now around that. Has any strategic change?
So there's no strategy change, and we encourage our shareholders and the public to go back and look at presentations that we put out from as long as a year ago.
Yeah.
And there's always a slide in there about our capital markets toolkit, the things that we want to do to be able to increase Bitcoin per share. I think the market declined broadly faster than I think most people anticipated, but we always wanted to have multiple tools in our toolkit. And so not just being able to issue equity to buy Bitcoin, that obviously is not possible now with MNAVs at the current level. So we wouldn't sell equity at a value lower than the value of our Bitcoin. That doesn't make any sense. But if you can now have a second tool, and that tool is perpetual preferreds, you're able to raise money in a way that is not dilutive in the case of the non-convertible version.
Yeah.
And you can issue the convertible version where the exercise price is much higher than the market. The dilution is much less, and it's at a price that is at a multiple of MNAV. And so I think the strategy hasn't changed. This is exactly sort of as we had planned, and it's so important for a company to have multiple tools in their toolkit to be able to increase Bitcoin per share over time.
Yeah, and then now we're gonna shift gear towards the preferred shares. Like you mentioned, perpetual preferred share. I think it's kind of new to the audience. So before asking too much detail, can you kind of explain like what really is briefly?
Sure. So a perpetual preferred has perpetual and preferred in the name. The perpetual side basically means that it's an instrument that doesn't have a maturity cliff, doesn't have a time that you're forced to repay the instrument. And so that's much better than just buying, just issuing debt that has to be repaid. And preferred side indicates where it sits in the capital structure. So it's a very secure instrument that sits at the top of the capital structure.
And then that allows you to buy, or increase the, Bitcoin per share.
That's right. The North Star, the goal of the company is always to engage in financing transactions that can increase Bitcoin per share, right? That's the most important thing. And so if you issue equity, there's immediate dilution. If you issue perpetual preferreds, depending on whether it's convertible or not, it's either a lot less dilution or it's no dilution. And that is something which is great for the common shareholders. The common shareholders don't have to suffer any further dilution, but they're able to increase their exposure to Bitcoin.
But you have to pay the interest, right? Where does the interest come from? I mean, the payment?
Yeah. And so our perpetual preferred that we've just announced comes with 4.9% dividend. That's dividend on face value. Our goal is to ensure that we have sufficient internal cash flow to be able to support our dividend obligations. And so we now have a income business, which we have 4 quarters of track record. And each quarter it's performed better than the previous quarter. This past quarter, we generated almost $17 million of cash flow from that business. And that will enable us to support the dividends on the perpetual preferred.
I see. And then this time you issue the, perpetual preferred to institutional investors, global, not Japanese. What does that mean to you guys? Is it the first major institutional investors outside of Japan, or?
Yeah, so we did a roadshow, over the past 4 weeks now. We spoke to a lot of investors about this instrument. We wanted to, I suppose, raise money from institutions that can help, support the issuance to help show that is something which resonates well with them. It's a product that they would be keen to be an owner of. The next step is for us to, work to get it listed on the stock exchange. But generally, retail investors don't want to buy a private instrument. Right. And so it was strategic for us to go to institutions, make sure that the product was something that they would be happy to own for the long term. And then we work through a process now to get it listed. We are speaking to the Tokyo Stock Exchange now. Our goal is to get it listed early next year. But of course, it's still subject to approval and lots of steps before that can happen.
What is the really requirements for that shares to be listed? Is any like a bunch of different kinds of requirements, or what are the roadmaps?
Sure. I mean, generally, if you are a public company listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, then you're able to issue a perpetual preferred or issue a preferred instruments that can also be listed. But there are lots of things that the stock exchange cares deeply about. One of the things which I think weighs heavily on their mind is, where does the payment come from? Does it come from internal cash flow? Can the company support that long term? But what I would say is that in the traditional financial world, issuers of fixed income instruments, they offer to repay that debt with future cash flow. And we are looking to pioneer a new system where we can repay our debt. We can repay our obligations with the capital that we already have. And that's a big distinction. right? If you are a fixed income investor and you buy a fixed income instrument from a company that has 100,000 employees, a very complicated business plan with cash flow that it promises to generate over the next 5-10 years to pay it off, that's very different to a company that's capitalized on Bitcoin, that is raising money, that is issuing fixed income on the basis of the capital they already have. I think that is something which is very different, which requires a little bit of time, I think, to educate the market on, but I think a much better position to be in, to raise money based on the capital you have and not based on the capital that you expect to earn over time. It's subject to all sorts of risk.
And you were the first and also the biggest, now the Bitcoin treasury company in Japan. Trying to, I think, introducing a lot of different and also new concepts to the market. And you've been educating a lot of, like MNAV and Bitcoin per share and a lot of stuff, the retail investors as well. Again, and now you have to educate audience, by issuing those preferred shares. How are you going to educate those retail investors potentially after listing or before listing those shares?
So it's not going to be easy. It's hard work. It's work that we're prepared to do. We are pioneering a new type of security in Japan, and so that requires a lot of engagement with our shareholders. We want to do more interviews like this with you. Please have me on again. We have a whole team now is also very much focused on delivering our story. I think we're quite proud of our presentations that we put out. We do our best to take the concepts and make sure that they can be easily understood. And we engage with our shareholders both on X and through our company email address, where we respond diligently to investors that have questions. But it's going to be a process. I think that once people get it, and there's that aha moment when people realize that actually this is a very creative and interesting concept, and something that we didn't create it, it's something that we are following Strategy's playbook, but localizing for Japan. And I'm just really excited that we can provide an opportunity for Japanese retail investors to earn a yield in a yield-starved market. And so when people now are really excited about money market funds that pay 0.5%, we expect that they would be very keen to buy an instrument that can pay them 10 times that, 5%.
Yes. And I feel like you guys, doing a lot of stuff, very quick, but also from outside, people probably wouldn't see this as a, such a great innovation, because you guys seem like very, without too much effort. Well, I wouldn't say effort, but then you guys do things very quickly. So I feel like this is not something, I'm not even sure if people realize how significant this is. So kind of wanted to see how significant you think this fundraising or new process of accumulating Bitcoin is. What do you think?
Sure. So I would say that maybe to the outsider it looks like we've made it look very easy.
Yeah.
But kind of behind the scenes there is a tremendous amount of work that takes place, and we are very much focused on ensuring that we meet all of the regulatory requirements. We engage very closely with the regulator, even with getting the support of our shareholders. Since the time that we adopted a Bitcoin standard at the beginning of last year, we've had 5 shareholder meetings. We're about to have a 6th shareholder meeting, because it's very important to us that we get the buy-in from our shareholders. And that's not something that most companies do. And even if we can do some of the raises that we've done without shareholder approval, we've decided to take the approach of let's always bring things back to our shareholders to make sure that they buy into what we're looking to build. And so a lot of hard work has gone into this. I think we're extremely proud of what we've achieved so far. I think it's just the first chapter in a very long story, a journey together with our shareholders. We're very proud to be a Japanese company with Japanese shareholders on the global stage. We're the only non-US company in the top 10 holders of Bitcoin. And I think that gives a lot of our Japanese shareholders a lot of pride. And so we want to continue to do that. We want Japan to be a Bitcoin superpower. I think Japan has an opportunity to really focus on kind of joining the US on the global stage as a leader. Japan has always been a leader in technology, and even in the Bitcoin space. The early days of Bitcoin, the center of the universe was Japan. And so I hope that Metaplanet can play a role there in helping achieve that, and working closely with the powers that be to deliver, I think, what will be a very exciting new paradigm for financial assets in Japan.
Yeah. Despite the market sentiment, the number of your shareholders has been increasing dramatically. I think people are really excited about what you guys doing, and also what you guys going to build. Not just for crypto, but also I think entire global financial system. What's your roadmap? What's your roadmap for the Metaplanet for the next 3-5 years?
Yeah, so I think the goal right now, and I've talked about this on a number of different talks that I've done, but I like to think about Metaplanet's journey in a number of phases. And so phase one we describe as kind of the gold rush, where the goal is to accumulate as much Bitcoin as we can, because having more Bitcoin means that more doors are open to us in the future. And so a year ago, we had 1,700 Bitcoin. Now we have over 30,000 Bitcoin. So that's a significant increase in just the space of 12 months. Now I think we're moving into kind of a second phase. The second phase is being able to find ways to continue to increase our Bitcoin per share through perpetual preferreds. But also we have alluded to something we're calling Project Nova in a number of our previous presentations. I can't share too much about that yet, but suffice to say that we think that we can be a vertically integrated Bitcoin company in Japan, where we are providing different types of Bitcoin services, not just to individuals, but to corporations. We have an opportunity perhaps to be a sort of MicroStrategy meets Galaxy Digital, MicroStrategy meets Coinbase, for the Japanese market. We already have more than 90% of all the Bitcoin held by corporations in Japan. We are the Bitcoin company. We own the Bitcoin.jp domain. We have the Bitcoin conference, which we're very excited about launching in Japan soon. And so I think we don't want to just be a company that buys Bitcoin. We want to be a company that is completely integrated into the Bitcoin ecosystem, and deliver value to our shareholders, and also be a company that sets a standard for Bitcoin in Asia.
Amazing. I think you have to run for the stage. So thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we can have another session when you have time. So.
No, I would love that. Thank you for the opportunity to sit down and speak.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.